If only justice was coming right on time. Well, we're working on that one. Let me introduce you once again to the members of Cladding Matters for this week. Of course, Hamish McClare of Surgical Rain, and our man on the ground, or is it in the flat? Steve Day, building safety scheme.org, and also a person who is living through the nightmare of both remediation, partial remediation, one might say, and also trying to fight for better legislation for safety within housing. But first of all, let's talk about what is today's topic. Today's topic is when oversight fails, trust and transparency. And as is traditional, Hamish, would you care to start us off?
I would indeed. Beautiful, beautiful day here in Oxfordshire. I haven't even got my lights on in my office today. It's that bright with the sun not shining in directly. And it's actually great. One of those, the doors wide open. And unfortunately, the likes of people who are going through the throes of remediation will very rarely have the opportunity of throwing those curtains wide. Where's that elbow song, isn't it? That lovely song they do. Throw the curtains wide. We can't bloody do that if you're in a block of flats that's shrouded in all this darn sort of material sort of coming down whilst to carry out all the remediation work. So one of the sad things about it, there are better ways of carrying out the remediation than we presently have. However, certain councils, certain building companies won't employ that particular one. So we do have the shrouds that say, but the big problem is as a consequence of the local authority, where Steve actually happens to be, that the remediation that's being carried out, 2 years with a shroud down covering their windows, so they can't open them wide and enjoy that sort of lovely fresh air, because after those 2 years they're really no better off, and the situation is such that they are back in the same position they were previously. The shroud is taken away, yet it's still a fire risk, and they're still wasting loads and loads of money on that particular sort of privilege of being able to reside in those sort of places.
But by the way, the song you were looking for was "One Day Like This" by Elbow, where you throw your curtains wide. And indeed, the issue is with shrouding these things, they have no real natural light. They feel like they're in a sarcophagus, mummified, as it were. And it just seems silly, especially when there are technologies like mast climbing available, which would immediately support that kind of thing. We more about Rob Munn and BFT mast climbers at a different date, but certainly it doesn't have to be this way. But of course, the knee-jerk reaction is to go throw the scaffolding up, cover everything up, and this is what you get.
And of course, one of the main things we're speaking about, and we wanted to sort of bring to everybody's attention while we wait for Steve to return, we have the saddening effect. I don't know which way it came, because we've noticed it. I think we've been speaking about the subjects of remediation and the poor quality of remediation that they're going through at Greenwich before this particular sort of government got in. But one of the things we do have about our central government, the transparency's departed. People are not answering questions. Yes. And it's almost as though there's a shroud appeared through their speech. They cannot any longer speak directly.
So we have a physical shroud over the buildings and a metaphorical shroud over the councillors. It seems like an untenable situation. Steve, it must be frustrating for you trying to get answers.
Well, I think what you have to look at is what's happening nationally as well. So this weekend, we're all going to take stock at what's happened in Parliament, if you're following it. And what you've seen is a prime minister has basically gone through a defence based on the plausible deniability.
Yeah.
Basically saying, the whole of government's just saying, oh, he didn't tell me, see no evil, hear no evil. And, that's basically how it's all working. And so, you've got a terrible situation where it looks like a very decent civil servant was fired for following the process Keir Starmer wanted followed. And what's interesting, and we'll come to the council in a second, but if at the top of this country, you've got the leadership saying, I don't want to know too much detail, but please make Mandelson, put him in the role. Vetting, nah, just put him in and don't tell me anything about it. Just follow
Yes, for goodness sake, don't inform me anything at all.
Yeah, and he's then gone to Parliament and said it's disgusting, the process stinks, and I should have been told about the vetting. But think about it. What happened? He was protected by the process because the process and the civil servant that followed it got fired, not him. Even though really the buck stopped with him because the process of putting Mandelson in was obviously to ignore the vetting. Whatever the outcome is of the vetting, that is optional, and the Foreign Office then can say, oh, it doesn't matter, we'll manage the risk. And then, and I think, and I know we're slightly off topic on the cladding matters, but you'll see the link in a second, but I think that sort of standoffish side of leadership is what we're seeing in Greenwich Council. And what
are you saying they are taking their cue from the way in which the government is effectively
that's exactly what I'm saying. So if the top of government is saying, we are going to keep to a process, then it basically shows what's happening in building safety perfectly. Because what are they saying in building safety? We have a standard called PAS that allows all this stuff on. You attack it, what happens? They say, well, I'm doing nothing wrong. This is what Greenwich Council are saying. They're saying the standard allows all those flammable XPS panels to stay on your fire shaft, nothing to do with us. And then because there's no repercussion for doing anything wrong, then they went a step further and said, not only are we not going to do anything about all the stuff they're leaving on your building, but we're going to also find that there's no evidence of unlawful construction just to stop you succeeding in a court should you ever take Barrett to court. And that is what's dangerous.
But hang on a moment, do we not have black and white evidence that the construction was against their own codes back in the day when it was built in the first place? We have that, do we not?
Yes, and also we have Stephanie Barwise has actually reviewed all the evidence now, and for your viewers, Stephanie Barwise is the leading Grenfell KC for the inquiry, and she looked at all the evidence of unlawful and very dubious marketing on the cladding products that have. No,
dare I say it?
She knows what she's talking about. She reviewed our case, and she said, "Yes, you're right. There is loads of evidence."
That KC's got backbone. She stands up and actually says what is the truth. She will not be silenced, and I have nothing but respect for that position, frankly.
And also, she's actually been public about it. So I'll read this out. So she says, "I wish to be clear that I have now read all the reports for RAC. I am clear that whilst one report is wrong, basically they got the building regulations thing wrong, the other reports do show various serious breaches in the fixing method of the cladding system and internal compartmentation defects." So she is absolutely sure, after reviewing everything, that they are breaches of building regulations at the time of construction. And she is also calling on the council to retract their false position. And I just want to summarise just what's happened, just so people know. So all we did was we went to the council and we said, we want you to get all the unlawful construction fixed. And firstly, the Lib Dems did a motion, and Labour signed it and then unsigned it after the deadline, killed the motion. So that's the one thing they did. Then the Tories did another go at the motion to try and get all the unlawful construction fixed. And I referred to a London Fire Brigade enforcement notice. The councillors stood up and said, there is no London Fire Brigade enforcement notice that's been promised, with all my residents there, making me look out to be a liar. And I stood up and I said, I've got the email, this is from the Fire Brigade, and they stopped me speaking. Then I applied to speak publicly, which was withdrawn on multiple occasions at the council, so I couldn't actually speak at anything and call them out. Then we looked at what the council could do, and we found out, yes, they could actually make Barratt pay in law for the unlawful construction. So we asked them to look at it. And then they said, there's no unlawful construction. Yes, we could look at it, but there's no unlawful construction. There's no evidence of it. And then after that, harassment allegations against me. And then councillors then bringing out, right, recently, just before the election, which I'm not standing for, that I've harassed. And also the final straw is one of the councillors that's responsible for the no evidence position saying that I wrote to her employer asking the employer to discipline her, which just wasn't true.
Which is utter Tommy Rod.
Isn't it breathtaking? All of that post-Grenfell inquiry, when it was a simple query about, will the council make Barratt do the right thing, care about building safety, and get on the unlawful materials removed.
No, but I do understand. With my cynical hat on, which, by the way, public is my normal hat.
Please do.
Well, first of all, I'm going to acknowledge this. We got a message in from Tiffany Fairbrother. Stephanie Barwise is a true warrior, as is Steve. So I just wanted, not at all. And
Stephanie's amazing.
No, she is. And thank you, Stephanie, for your continued. Well, all you're doing is the right thing, but for choosing to do the right thing when so many others look the other way. I don't know who this is, but AD said, as long as I don't need a background check, I'm in. Thank you. Very funny. You don't need a background check to support the truth, my friend. Let's move beyond that. What it appears to me is it's all about this plausible deniability.
Yeah.
If people, and this is, as you say, it kind of infected them from watching. They watched their grandmasters up at number 10 do it, and they're thinking, well, they're getting away with it. Let's do it too. And on top of that, they realize, as do we, the thousands, tens of thousands of other locations where this would apply. And they know that this is opening Pandora's box. As soon as they admit that there was something wrong in the first place, what about these other thousands of other properties who are in a similar position? And that's not even taking into account properties below
11 meters, 11
meters, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, at the end of the day, remember, Iraq, although it could be seen as Pandora's box, it's only actually a few panels, and it was costed, under 100 grand, I think. And in a 30 million pound project, that's not very much.
No, but if you want to multiply that up by the number of properties out there that are in a similar constructive state, we are starting to talk telephone numbers.
Yeah, but it needs to be done. That's what we're saying. There's construction industry levy, and there's no way out for.
Well, it makes me return to the fact that what was it? The statement made on PAS 1980 that there was acceptable risk.
It's only acceptable if you're the builder. Well, it's not acceptable if you're the person that.
Not if you're an inhabitant, no.
No, and it's clearly not to the insurers as well, and to growing numbers of fire engineers who are also saying, actually, there's something wrong with this standard. And I think we all know it's a fudge. But I go back to what we've seen this week. I think it's very, very, very key that in our modern politics, in the Labour Party specifically at the moment, there's an attitude of we're in power. You can say what you like, and we'll find a mechanism to basically dismiss your concerns. And in the case of poor Oliver Robbins, it looks like, very, very senior civil servant with multiple prime ministers. He's the fall guy for the fact that there's this plausible deniability that they hide behind the process. And in the same way, the leader of the Greenwich Council, Anthony Okereke, he's hiding behind a statement by the council and then he says that it's been dealt with by the statement, but the statement doesn't have any voice on the no evidence position. It doesn't deal with it. But
could it be that he is trying to hang on to the strings, the apron strings of power, by not admitting to the fact that there could be any black mark or besmirch on either his or the council's character?
Well, yes, I think that's a really good. But what's very interesting, if you've got something 100% that you're wrong on, and what they do, and this is the very worrying thing, is they produce a statement that doesn't deal with it, and then they say that it's been dealt with by that statement. And that's what we've seen there, which, it cost 72 people their lives at Grenfell, the fact that they were managing public queries about the safety of their buildings.
Right.
But this is what we're seeing in public life, and what you saw this week was a prime minister that basically did the same thing. Instead of the no evidence position, it was we followed this process, which is obviously flawed because the process ignored the vetting. They ignored the fact that it had a big red box: do not allow this person in. And that process allowed the Foreign Office to basically not only override a decision, but to hide the decision from the country and the Prime Minister. Now, he's saying that that's nothing to do with me, that's just a process, and blaming the civil servant and firing them. Anthony Okereke at Greenwich Council saying, we produced a statement. I'm not going to go into whether it's dealing with the matter or not, but we've done it and we've dealt with it.
Yes,
and there's parallels there, and this is what we're seeing across organizations, public life, private companies, everywhere, is that they get people in that basically effectively allow them to walk away from truth. We're in a post-truth world where the cost of lying, of misleading, misrepresenting, of defaming is zero to the powerful and everything to the ordinary person.
Well, let me just bring in Hamish to that. Hamish, it seems to me that, I know this is a non-political show, but it appears that our current lords and masters at the government appear to be turning their face away from the problem and just waiting for someone else to deal with it.
But I rather get the impression that every time we've been speaking about this, that Mr. Anthony Okereke, he has been ahead of the Prime Minister in the way in which he's been able to prevent the residents from speaking out. And what we have to remember about this council leader is the fact that already he caused the resignation of one of his own party members because they had the audacity to be concerned about something their members were saying.
Yes.
Now, that is absolutely farcical. And they have this habit of parachuting councillors in. Now, I'm sure they're going to be doing exactly the same thing for May the 1st. They won't have people locally. They won't give the opportunity to even the local Labour Party members to decide on their councillors. They will decide on the ones that they want to win. But hopefully enough of the residents, realising they are not being represented by the Labour councillors at this moment in time, will actually do something about it. And it's basically this: we don't have the power with central government at this particular stage because we don't have any votes. We can't vote on it. We can just see the mess but unfortunately, at the local level, it's not so evident. There isn't so much publicity about it. So it can actually continue. But people can make a change. And it's up to the people. If you want the same things to continue, and there are dangerous buildings, it's not just Royal Artillery Quays that's in a dangerous situation.
No.
Within the Greenwich Council area. There are a number of other buildings, and it's being investigated as we speak. that will come out in due course to see the serious damage which has been caused by this particular sort of party locally. And as it's happening all over the country, it won't be happening for much longer, because outside of Greenwich anyway, there's going to be massive change. And the Labour Party themselves, they need to change this. They need to become transparent again, because otherwise they are history.
Well, on that bombshell, I'd like to thank Steve Day for being part of this. Thank you so much, Steve. And of course, Hamish McClay of Selchuk Bay, our Lord Marto, has helped set this thing up in the first place. And to all of you watching, it's down to you now. You need to stand up for what is right. You need to make your voices heard. And if the Labour Party doesn't take notice of this and keep sticking its proverbial head in the sand, ostrich-like, they potentially will be history fairly soon. Until next week, keep your feet on the ground, keep reaching for the stars, and please look after your mental health. Bye-bye now.
There's a tale about some folks with hammers and some nails. They'll polish you the moon